Peter Dutton, thanks for joining the program.
Thanks, David.
So you describe the Queen as one of humanity's brightest lights. What does her death mean for Australia?
Well, I think at the moment there's a period of reflection, and naturally so, after such a long reign. She obviously had a deep and abiding affection for Australia, to send her eldest son here to school, and the number of times she visited. And I think there are many Australians who, young or old, will have their own story about the Queen. I think the way in which she was able to connect even with the current generation is a real tribute to her. The way in which she was able to transform herself during the course of her reign made her relevant to each new generation. So there's that period of reflection. I think it provided a very significant period of stability for our country, especially when you look at other comparable countries around the world. We're in a very fortunate position, and in part that's due because of her long reign and the stability of her reign.
The formalities, the process that we're seeing play out over the last few days and the coming week, the funeral we now know will be on Monday the 19th. Do you think everything for Australia's part has been appropriately handled, and what do you think about whether there should be a national public holiday here as well?
Well, I'd certainly support a public holiday. That's obviously a question for the Prime Minister, but yes, I think things have been dealt with appropriately. A few sort of rogue elements on the side, but mostly people have been respectful, and I think that's exactly as it should be. I think the way in which the government's responded has been very professional, entirely appropriate, and not just the Prime Minister, but the Premiers, the Chief Ministers, others, dignitaries that we saw yesterday from the diplomatic corps. Everybody, I think, has really felt this loss, and they've expressed it appropriately.
What sort of king do you think Charles will prove to be?
Well, I had the pleasure of meeting both, well, now the King and Queen Consort a couple of years ago in Brisbane, and I must say just a very down-to-earth person. I was sort of pleasantly surprised because you could claim that he was a quirky character, but I thought he was very engaging, and I think if you're in the training for decades as he has been, and with the Queen as such an influential presence in his life, as in William's, that's the reality of it. She was a very significant presence for the world, but obviously within the family, the royal family as well, and I think he will pick up many of her traits, and I think that will be a good thing for the United Kingdom and frankly for the Commonwealth.
He's also been, in his role as Prince, outspoken on some issues, climate change in particular. He told the European Parliament some years ago the doomsday clock on climate change is ticking ever faster towards midnight. We cannot be anything less than courageous and revolutionary, he said, in our approach to tackling climate change. Do you agree with the now King?
Well, I think certainly in terms of the measures that we need to adopt, and as a country we have been for a long period of time to mitigate our emissions and to embrace renewables, and all of that's well underway. We've just got to make sure we don't get to a situation like we've seen in Germany where they're rationing power, or in California where they're talking about rolling blackouts, in the United Kingdom itself at the moment where power prices in average families, they're talking about thousands and thousands of pounds, and people will turn their lights off. So there's a sensible approach to it, and I'm sure the King would endorse that, but he now moves into a different phase of his life, and as he pointed out, he's been a very strong supporter of charities and different causes for most of his adult life, but he puts that to one side now because he takes up the important role as the head of the Commonwealth, and as the King he will have a responsibility to dispense his duties fairly and as the Queen did. So I think the continuity is the important element of his reign. There's just no suggestion whatsoever.
Are you suggesting there that he should
be monarch to the
dropping
Queen.
the advocacy? Are you saying he should be dropping the advocacy on issues like climate change?
No, I think he made the point in his speech yesterday that there are many causes that he has supported as a patron, but otherwise, including climate change. I'm sure he was referring to all of these issues, and he will have very strong views on this issue and many others, I'm sure. But I think the point he made in his speech yesterday was that he now, as the Queen did, doesn't express those views on a day-to-day basis. Prince William's very strong in relation to this issue and many others. He's a patron of many organisations as well, and as the Prince of Wales, he'll have a greater ability to speak out on and to support causes that are important to him. But as King, I think as the Queen conducted her business, she's there, he is there now as an impartial person, takes up that role, and they obviously take it very seriously. And I think I think it's hard for us as outsiders you see the sort of the mystique and the prestige of the royal family and the rest, but clearly at times like this, I think it's highlighted that they're completely and utterly dedicated to the cause above all else. And I think that's been a real element of stability for us, and I hope that it will be into the future.
You're not a Republican, you support sticking with the monarchy. Peter Dutton, why does Australia need a king?
Well, in terms of the debate about the monarchy and the Republic, I think that's for another day. To be honest, I think, David, at the moment we mourn the loss of an incredible world leader, a woman who was obviously an amazing role model to many women, to many female leaders across the world. And we need a king as much as we did a queen, because we have a stability in our system that has served us well. And I don't believe in disrupting that, but I think today we're obviously mourning the loss of the Queen, but also the proclamation of King Charles III takes place here in Australia later this morning, and that will be a very important ceremony for us to be involved in. Just on my way to Canberra now to join with the Prime Minister and the Governor-General in that regard, and again it's another step along the way of the transformation that's taking place, a very significant day in history for the United Kingdom, but for Australia as well.
All right, Peter Dutton, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thanks very much, David.